Welcome to Conversations with Educators, where we bring educators from across the country to talk about topics like college and career readiness, graduation tracking, teacher growth, assessment coordination, and more. Let's get started. Okay, well, I am going to go ahead and jump in again because these 30 minutes go very, very fast. Again, happy Friday Eve. That's what we will call it. I love that. Happy end of May. I know we're all probably dragging a bit to the finish line and it slows down a bit, but we also know that it's never really over. And so hopefully, at least you're wrapping some things up and doing all the fun stuff, the graduations, the end of year celebrations, and we are excited you found some time to spend with us. So, if I don't know you already, my name is Laura Miller. I've been with Test Hound as long as Max. That makes me laugh. Max Gregory is also with us. We have been with the Test Hound team for, it's hard to say, 9 years now. So,
Yeah,
we've had a lot of fun watching the product evolve over time, serving the folks that we serve, and have really enjoyed being a part of these conversations with educators webinars. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen briefly just to kind of walk through what we're talking about today. Um, we are going to chat a little bit about now what, okay? You've gotten through spring testing, data. If it's not rolling in, it's going to be rolling in very soon. How do we handle it and what do we do with it? So, quickly, our agenda, we'll definitely be introducing our guest speakers, talk about today's conversation, which is retesting and graduation, graduation tracking, using reports, communicating insights, and planning ahead for the next cycle, which we all know will be here before we know it. We have a wonderful panel with us today. Mary Discern, who's the coordinator of data and assessment in Bryan ISD in Texas. Blake Emmons, who's the director of student assessment in Pasadena ISD. And do hate to say something sad. Randy Winchy from Brazosport had planned to join us today and had a family emergency. So unfortunately, he can't be with us, but we're going to have a fantastic conversation with Mary and Blake. And I'm going to stop sharing my screen because I think it's nicer when we can see faces a little bit bigger. And I don't know, Mary and Blake, Max, do you want to go ahead and maybe ask the lead-in question to kind of get our brains
sure.
going? And then Mary and Blake, we'll just let you spout all your knowledge.
Yeah, definitely happy to do that. So I guess kind of the big question, Blake and Mary, is so you get your score files and then what? So, what steps do you take to make sure everything's loaded, looking information, to end up in the year, get ready for your summer retest. Like Laura said, it never ends. But so where do y'all go from the moment you get your files? Whoever wants to go first, no pressure.
Yes, I'll jump in first and then let Blake, the expert, talk. First, when we get our files, so we noticed last year maybe I pulled them too fast, but we were missing a few at first, like they seemed to trickle in throughout the day or the next day. So first, once we get them in, we run them compared to who all we say tested in our district to make sure that we're not missing somebody's scores. Sometimes it's because a kid just recently tested with us, but they really, are on that snapshot data for a different district, or they moved with after, the window closed from us. So we compare to make sure we got everybody. And then like yesterday, we got Telpos. So right away, we sent that data to our bilingual department so that they could start making the LPAC. These are the kids who might
Mhm.
potentially need that Iowa test because they're K1 or sorry, they're first, second, or 11th graders. And then we sent that also to our summer school because we have a whole bilingual summer school. So they knew who to invite, who to think about for placements, and our AVID coordinators because they use that also when they're doing AVID placement. And then we'll send all of our data for SPED to our art department so that they can right away start holding art committees as needed, especially before June EOCs for our high school students, because we want to make sure that we're not testing them if they're going to art accept those scores in the future, for the following school
Yeah.
year. And then we also send the data to our accelerated math department so that they, can follow the law and start placing those students. who may have met mastery or made the cutoff for needing accelerated math in the intermediate and middle schools. And then we send it also to our CI department, CNI, because they're right now thinking about curriculum for next year. So what do we need to tweak? Is there something big, a grade level that maybe we need to reconsider or think about sending some interventions to? All right.
That was a great job, Mary, and very detailed, much more detailed than I would have provided, I'm sure. So like most districts, we have multiple vendor platforms that house data for us. And so once we receive those data files, it's just making sure that we've uploaded those data files to all of the appropriate software platforms to make sure that data is making to the people who need it. So that we can identify those students in need or make sure that we have all reports for all of our students. We share those with campuses as quickly as we possibly can to make sure campus leaders have an opportunity to look through and make sure they have scores for all of their students, et cetera. Like most, we're anxiously awaiting the release of the STAR scores and those preliminary data files. So thank you, Test House, for making it available for us to upload those. That is a great tool for us to be able to upload that information and allow our campus testing coordinators a way to compare a list of retesters to what the state decides that our retester list is. And so being able to verify against the information that's in the state assessment platform is a great resource for us to make sure that we're not overlooking any students and we're providing all of our students that opportunity to retest.
Okay, Mary, I have one question for you real quick, just as a kind of a follow-up. So Laura and I lived this too back in our previous life. And I was curious, so when you were talking about sharing results with all the different departments, do you upload those files into like a like Eduforia to Tango, something like that, like a data management system to then provide reports, or are you sending just the score files?
So we
Curious.
do upload into Eduforia, into on data,
Oh,
on
on Data
point.
Suite.
Yes. But we also send in Google after I take out Peems and data bursts and all that, for the students, because we don't want that to get released. We do send those files. We paid for a nice little extension for Google. So once I put it in there, I can push a button and it separates my big file into campus files. And then I share
Cool.
that campus file with the campus, the principal of that campus. We send it immediately, the high school files, to the not just the principal, but to the counselors. That's the only time we skip and send to, anybody besides the principal at first. But we send it to the counselors because their, graduation is this week and we're just going to get that file tomorrow. So they need to look at their IGC candidates and their seniors to make sure they have, all that. But we do put it in the vendor files. But like yesterday, I unfortunately put TELPOS preliminary in there, and it was showing like all the sections: reading, writing, listening, speaking, but the composite score didn't go in there correctly. So if the schools were using that, it wasn't going to be helpful. So we sent that file to them through that Google. But like I said, we bought that little extension and it's been a life changer how quickly that works to separate into files. So
Pretty neat. Wish I would have had that. Laura just got all my spreadsheets.
I was gonna say that's a great little nugget for, I think, for everybody that's listening to the
Yeah.
webinar. That to me would be huge. And Mary, kind of in elaborating on that, because you struck a nerve with me, former high school counselor, and this is such a stressful time of year, trying to figure out who's going to walk the stage, who's going to have an IGC, how quickly we can make all of that done or get all of that done. How are you two, and Blake, I'm going to start with you. I'm just going to tell you, you're the first one. Um, Making the waiver exclusion process smoother, or all those little nitpicky reasons that kids can be waived from tests. How are you communicating that and making that easier for your campuses right now?
That has been an ongoing challenge just for us to make sure that we identify all of those students for multiple reasons, of course, and also to avoid irregularities, to make sure that we're not testing students who've already had an exclusion or weren't required to retest, or give them that opportunity, for example, with the EL provision. But What we've started doing is once we receive all of these score reports and uploaded them to the different vendors, we extract reports from those vendor files and started uploading at the district level those exclusions to Test Town. So now our campus testing coordinators can look in Performance Tracker and really easily identify those students who have qualified for exclusions. We used to rely on the individual campuses to enter those exclusions, but we've identified some ways that we can upload that file at the district level and make it a little bit easier for our users on the campus.
That's great. Mary, would you like to add anything to that?
That is pretty much the same. We definitely take care of those, making sure those are in there. That's one of the great features of Test Town that we absolutely couldn't live without. So we do load them at the district level also, just so it's more accurate.
Sorry, I'm sitting here pondering. I'm thinking of the right way I have a question, but it's kind of that middle of the day and I hit that lull. So it took me a second to kind of formulate it. So I know you both, like Blake, Mary, you're both talking about how you get that data. I'm kind of curious, for the exclusions, you're uploading that. Do you provide a file template to the different departments and they fill it out so then you can upload it into TestDown, or how do they? I'm just curious how they communicate that back to you and how you consolidate that information.
Actually, it's a little bit the reverse. I reached out to the departments and asked for a student who qualified for different exclusions, and they provide me with the student information. I just ask them for certain fields so I can make sure that I have a unique identifier so that I'm not uploading any information for the incorrect student. And then I compile the file and upload it into TestHound.
Okay. Mary, do you do the same kind of thing at your side?
Pretty much do the same type of thing. We don't really do that many exclusions, after COVID. I mean, COVID, we did a lot, but pretty much we
Just a
don't
few that year.
too many waivers. We do put in the art accepts, and I let my campus high school do that a lot, but then I asked my sped team for a list of all the art accepts that they can pull through Frontline, just to make sure that we don't miss students. Because if we have an irregularity, that is probably the irregularity we have the most, because a high school person, like last year, we had a new CTC and she was putting them in, but she wasn't doing it as an exclusion. She just put them all in a room called art accept. Well, of course that didn't do anything because that doesn't get uploaded into Tide when I pull an extension file. So we learned the hard way that we still have to do it at the district level too, so that we're not causing it, hard for somebody else. Especially our kids who you might have them at the high school, the main high school, in an art accept room. And so you're not testing them because but when they go to DAP, JJAP, et cetera, they don't see that you had them in an art accept room and they don't see that exclusion. So, that's where we got caught last year. And our DAP CTC, she hates to get an irregularity for something that could have been, taken care of. So.
Or when you run those checks at the end of the testing window, they're still showing up as untested students because you still had those eligibility flags on. So
let me ask real quick, Blake, how many high school campuses are in your district, just out of curiosity?
We have 6 comprehensive high school campuses and another specialty campus.
Okay, and then Mary, what about in Bryan?
We're smaller than that. We have 2 comprehensive, 1 collegiate high school, 1 school of choice, so and then the alternative like JJAP, JJC, we're the county for that, so the region.
Got it. And I knew that, and that's good. What I was getting with is representing a little bit different ways of things working, a little bit bigger versus a little bit smaller. Not that the problems are not all the same, no matter how big or small you are. But I know we're talking about data. I wanted just to quickly hijack this, Max, for a second, and just let's talk a little about summer consolidation too. That's something that we really want to, as a product, TestTown to help. Once you've identified who those retesters are, can you maybe walk us through what your processes are for, do you move kids to different campuses? Do they go to their home campus? How do you use TestTown as well, maybe to help you work that process?
So historically, we've been testing all of our retesters at their home campuses, and that's what we've done for forever. This year, we're starting a new adventure, and we're consolidating all of our summer testing to our summer school locations. And so we're going to be actually splitting the district in half. And we're going to have a north campus and a south campus and consolidating our retesting at those two locations. And so for the first time, we're going on a new adventure and consolidating our students. And we've got our summer school testing location campuses set up in Test Town already. And I'm just waiting to process the file in order to move the students to the appropriate campus once we've identified who those students are.
That's great. Well, we'll all want to
Awesome.
follow up and know how that went for you. If that's what you, I think it's a lot of districts do that and others don't. So it's interesting to see how that, we'll know how that change goes. Mary, what about you all?
So our campuses all test at one high school. They all do summer school. Well, no, let me send that back. Our two major comprehensive high schools, they choose one high school that's going to do, summer school for the summer, and all the kids go there. But we still have both CTCs on contract the whole time. So when it comes to testing, although they're all at summer school together, we test at that one building, but the top floor is one school testing and the bottom, so we run them as separate testing groups. And then our collegiate high school, they rarely have kids that have to test, but if they do, then we send them to test at that same, big high school. And then one of the campuses just says, I'm going to run, include them in my testing rooms. So we do that. And then we have our EOC, SF, sorry, I'm naming schools. We have our two middle schools that have EOC testers, and they occasionally have retest kids. And we put them in, whichever one didn't take the collegiate, then they take the 8th graders to test, because we can't forget about them in that EOC retest. And then our school of choice test their own kids. Those kids usually have their own agendas, and so they do their own. We don't mix them with everybody else.
Max, do you have any Test Town nuggets to share on what's coming out with information on how to help people with this process, or anything you can think of off the top of your head?
Well, it's so ironic, maybe. I guess so. Yesterday, I think it was yesterday. Yeah, it was Wednesday. So Carrie did a webinar on summer retesting, and so that's going to be recorded. And we're going to post on our site. Um, if you test at homeschool, I guess the negative, like nothing changes. You have all your data in there. Blake and Mary may be a little bit familiar. Blake, you're hitting the nail on the head. One of the things you have to do with consolidate testing is create those schools in your test town, and then modify your student file so that those students are attributed at that school. Now, accommodations should follow, I'll say, with the caveat pending somebody at the homeschool hasn't removed those accommodations. If for some reason they uncheck the accommodations, they process an alert that removes them. When you move that kid over, obviously there's nothing there to pull, but that should work. If it doesn't, you can, and your district subscribes to autopilot and you have a vendor file coming in, you can always modify that file too, and you can re-upload it so you move those accommodations over. But it's not too complicated. What you would do, I'm just reading, there's one question from Elizabeth about their first year to test the students from 2 high schools. So what you would do is, you know what, instead of me saying it, Blake, you're kind of going through it, and I'm assuming, have you gone in and you've created your like North and South School in Test Town? I think you mentioned that, right?
Yeah, we have. We actually had a couple of campuses that we used to use for virtual school campuses, and we just modified the names of those 2 existing campuses to make those our summer school testing locations. So that was relatively easy. It's been a few months, but I did practice a little bit with uploading a student file just to make sure I understood the process. But it's honestly been a minute, and I'm going to have to review the instructions. I will say that there are some fantastic resources available in the Test Town help section for walking you through that process.
And
We like
so,
hearing that.
yeah,
That's
it is.
good.
I mean, it's good that it's there.
Yeah.
Good news is, I guess I would say, Blake or anyone else who's consolidating the data, so you can upload that data at the district level. All you would have to do, and you could ask your tech department for it, is get a copy of the file. And all you're doing is really modifying that school ID in there to match the school that you've created in test town. And so you can upload the file. Now, I will say, like you're at a pretty big district. So you would re-upload the whole file. It might take a minute to process. And so Laura's laughing because she probably knows where I'm going to go with this. The bigger the file, the longer it's going to take. So when you upload that file in Test Town, if it takes more than 60 seconds, you might see a gateway error. That doesn't mean the file didn't process. It's still processing behind the scenes, but it took Test Town a little bit longer to finish that file than when you're waiting there. So I would just tell everybody it works. We'll work on trying to clean that up, but please know behind the scenes, it is still processing data. Just Blake, since you mentioned it, it might be a little warning when you get there, you don't think it didn't process.
Laura's probably got some of those calls from me before, so.
I'm glad that you mentioned that, Max, because I get that gateway error sometimes, and then I just take the time so I'm making y'all work harder, because then I take the time and I split that file up into smaller files, so I won't get the error. I didn't realize it was still processing in the background. I'm just forcing it to do it because I'm shortening what I send at that point.
Yeah. And that really, it's more of it was a way on our end to make sure that, I guess we don't have the greatest error messaging, but it's just that timing. So like when you would run a report before we transitioned some of them to that service and it took so long and you get that timeout error, processing of data though, Mary, at least now, in the background, you can just let it sit. It may take a few minutes to finish processing, but when you come back in, you could check one of those summer school locations and you should see those student alerts populating at that point.
Yay, more nuggets.
Yeah.
Aren't these things good? Like you never know what's going to pop up. And that's a really, I think, great point for everybody. And even Crystal saying thanks for the tidbit. So I like that. Lori did just post a new video on how to modify your files for the summer, and there's the link right there. And so that along with like Blake said, our amazing help section, and we're here to help you in any way, so don't hesitate to reach out if you get in a pickle and need some help. I'm going to throw a little curveball question that was not part of what we kind of talked about, Mary and Blake, but I know you've got great information here. If you had to maybe pick the biggest piece of advice for, we're going to say, district level coordinator and maybe a campus level coordinator this time of year, what would you tell them is the best thing that you know to do, or the best piece of advice you have? Blake, Mary unmuted.
Well,
She's ready to go.
I'm on me first, so here I go. I was waiting to see if Mary wanted to respond, but geez, it's a challenging time of year, and so just the big three things are communication, communication, communication. It's so difficult to get students to commit to the summer retest opportunity, and so it's important that they take advantage of that opportunity because the information is never going to be more fresh on their mind than it is right now, just having completed the semester. And so multiple communications with students and parents about the retest opportunities and trying to get a commitment from those students to come up and test is very, very important. And then communicating that or continuing that communication with your campus testing coordinators and other stakeholders to make sure that we've properly identified all of the students who are eligible for that opportunity and that those students are going to receive the supports that they need. And so accommodations is always a huge concern for us. We have multiple vendor files that are feeding into Test Town with accommodations information. And so making sure that all of those different vendor files are communicating correctly and that all of the information included in those vendor files is in the format that it needs to be to make sure students are receiving those accommodations has been critical for us as well. We had a huge transition this year and changed vendors for all of our emerging bilingual population, special education 504, new vendor files coming in. It was a very it was a great learning opportunity for us.
I like how you
process worked really, really smoothly on the Test Hound side as far as having everything set up and everything working appropriately. We had a few challenges on the other side with some of the vendors, but we were able to work through those and had a very, very successful season.
And I agree with everything Blake just said, but I also want to remind you as you're communicating and you're sending files to remind the people that are receiving your files that a lot of it's confidential, that, where to post it, where not to post it, who to share with, who not to share with, etc. Because, sometimes we have some people who totally share what they shouldn't be sharing. So we just want to make sure to send that reminder also in communication.
I think that's great. Well, like I said, these 30 minutes go very fast. Blake and Mary, are there any other nuggets of wisdom you would like to share with the group? Thoughts coming to your head?
I just share, don't forget to reach out because you guys do a great job of supporting us and answering questions when we have issues, and that we have a whole community of other DTCs, et cetera, to reach out to also. So if you come into a bind, please ask, somebody will be able to help you.
We love hearing that. That's what we're here. That's what we're here to do, is help, for sure. I feel like we've been answering questions as we go. Sometimes we say there'll be Q&A at the end, but I've been my experience, people just pop them in when they have them. And so continue to pop any other questions in if you'd like to ask them. I also thought it might be kind of fun if you feel like playing along, maybe put in the chat, what are you looking forward to the most this summer? Like not work related. What are you doing? What are your plans? If you feel like participating in that, I'm going to share my screen again just really quickly and just make a little announcement. If you are in the state of Texas, all of this stuff is what you're living already all day, every day. You're using Performance Tracker, you're tracking testing history. We are very, very excited. Just so that you know, if you're in Texas, everybody is in this together across the country. It is a challenge. It is hard to manage. And Max and Jason Graham and our dev team have been working really hard to be able to get this component that has not been available in other states. It's about to be available. And so as you hear these people talking about data and using TestTown to track and getting the information to the appropriate people and make sure we're graduating the right kids, we are very excited to start launching Performance Tracker in our other states, because it's hard everywhere. If it makes anybody feel any better, everybody's facing the same challenges day in and day out. It's tough. I want everyone to know, and I think you do know, that our goal is truly to make your lives easier. Our entire team at Education Advanced, especially the TestTown team that's on this meeting today, love serving you all and love helping make things better for you. That's our goal. We have all sat in your position in some sort of capacity in our life, and we understand what challenges you face, and we want to make the path wider, make it easier, all of that. We do have other products. Just always like to make sure you know that. The Pathways one right now, it's a challenge tracking those kids that need to graduate, so we can help with that. We really want to start kind of circling all of our products and saying we're helping get kids to the finish line by helping support your teachers through evaluation, doing all their career pathways tracking, and also helping them get the assessment needs that they have through TestTown. So I am going to stop sharing again so I can see everybody's faces. And also I love reading. I love reading the comments. Like, Blake, you're one of the most helpful people I've ever come across. How do you like that? Okay, like Hawkins, there's good stuff here. So I'm going to leave the chat open for just a few more minutes in case anybody else wants to share something. I hope you're making plans to get some rest and have some fun and take a deep breath, because we're already typing things with the 25-26 school year and like information. It's weird, but it just comes so quickly. So make sure you take time to regenerate, rejuvenate, whatever those words are, refresh.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Laura,
Max.
don't forget you need that too.
Yeah, I'll try to
We'll work
remember.
on it.
I'm going to work on that. Okay, anything else? Thank you again, Blake and Mary, so much for your time. And again, just please keep Randy and his family in your thoughts as they're navigating some challenges right now. We are all here to support each other. Hope everybody has a great rest of your Thursday and a wonderful Friday. Thank you again.
Take care.
Thanks for joining us. If you want to learn more about college and career readiness, graduation tracking, teacher growth, assessment coordination, be sure to subscribe to our newsletter. Until next time.